Join me in welcoming Jared Julia. Hey, Jared, how you doing today?
Oh, great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, thanks. The book is called Critical Feather Theory. I love this book. It cracks me up every time I get to say the name. Um, but before we jump into talking about the book, tell us first just a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm a parent. I live in a small town in Western Maine, and I put two kids through the public school system, and then they both went to college. My daughter went to Emerson, and my son went to St. Anselm in New Hampshire. And yeah, I was kind of surprised at how the college experience has changed so much since I went to college. And I started to look into it because it was kind of disturbing, what some kids are being taught today or not being taught. And so even though I'm not an educator, my wife actually is. She's a lifelong teacher. I'm not an educator or an expert or anything like that. I'm simply a parent that just got very concerned about a lot of the stuff that's going on, and had no idea what I could do about it. So
So, critical feather theory. Um, I think some people have probably already guessed, but explain to us what critical feather theory is.
yeah, well, it's obviously a kind of mocking critical race theory, which is a theory that is in academia right now, and it's being taught to our children. And really, what it is, like a lot of things that we loosely refer to as woke, because actually woke started out as a good thing. It started out just kind of awakening people to the injustices that other people in their society and their communities were experiencing. And so it started out as a nice, innocent, and good thing. But then it has grown into this whole belief system, which is very, very disturbing and gives kids a distorted view of both history and present day reality. And one of the offshoots of this woke philosophy is critical race theory, which really shows that all white people are inherently racist, and all black people are inherently victims, and that there's really no salvation for people that are white or are oppressors. And so it's like this. I don't know if you're from the Catholic tradition, they have penance for sins, and so it's like this lifelong penance that certain people have to have, and then lifelong privileges that other people must enjoy. And a lot of us see this as utter madness. This is very, very destructive to race relations. So that's why I wanted to talk about it, and yeah, to talk about it and to really educate people as to what it is and what its origins, more importantly, are. So, excuse me.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about the origins of it, because I know, and the book's so much fun and it's got such cute illustrations in it, but I know that I learned a lot of things that I didn't know. So talk to us a little bit about the origins. I mean, you talked about woke starting off as a good thing. So tell us the good parts about it, because a lot of people haven't heard any good about it either.
Well, I think it's always good to be aware of challenges that certain people have that maybe you or I don't. There's people from other countries. There's people that I look about. The benefit that I had economically when I first graduated from college and I got my first real job. My parents told me that I needed to put the maximum that I could into my 401k. And I really didn't think I needed to. I wasn't thinking about retirement at the age of 22. But they got me thinking along those lines. And I just wonder, people that don't have that same advantage, what have they done? Maybe they didn't contribute to their 401k and until they're like in their 50s or something, and then really it's too late. So there are a lot of people that through culture, through education, and through where they start out economically do have certain advantages. And to call attention to this and understand that not everyone has your advantages, I think is a good and positive thing. But unfortunately, it's kind of branched out into something much worse. It's almost like the origins of the mafia. I'm an Italian American, and there were these pirates, Mediterranean pirates, that threatened the towns in Sicily. And while the villagers were in church, the pirates would come and steal things from these coastal towns. And so the mafia was set up to prevent this from happening. But then after these pirates stopped coming, because of the political situation changed, they grew into something far more disturbing and far more far-reaching. And that's really what happened to woke. It started out as, hey, let's think about other people that don't have our advantages, to really this, it's grown into this denial of basic reality. And, our kids shouldn't be taught this. So.
I love that. Um, yeah, I just totally went off on a total tangent. And I want to keep on your book and not talk about pirates in the Mediterranean.
Oh. But
Yeah.
but yeah, and so woke has grown into something where it really is almost like the overlap between Marxism and Nazism, because we're taught that Marxism is way over here to the left and Nazism is way over here to the right. But when I started researching the origins of woke, I started to discover that philosophically, there actually a lot of the same philosophies drive communism that also drive Nazism. And there's a very famous philosopher named Heidegger, who's a German, who was the president of Freiburg University, but he was appointed to that position by Adolf Hitler. So he was a card-carrying Nazi, and yet a lot of his philosophy shows up in woke. And of course, Marxists like Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida, these were all unrepentant Marxists. A lot of their beliefs show up in woke. So it's this overlap of these two philosophies that really killed more people in the 20th century and created more hardship and really created a lot of suffering of a lot of innocent people. And yet the same philosophical underpinnings are in modern day woke, which is being taught to our children. So, with Hitler Youth and with these other youth organizations that all communist societies have, where they encourage you to tell on your parents, they kind of drive a wedge between the student and the parent. We're seeing that with woke educators today. And they get this from their Marxist/Nazi philosophical forefathers, if you will. So I started researching all this, and I had never read Mein Kampf before, but I read it while researching for this book. I read the Communist Manifesto, having only heard about these things. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's so much woke in these, woke took so much from a lot of these texts that it was very, very disturbing. And then one thing about Marxism and how it directly draws from that woke directly draws from Marxism is that you see a lot of the Marxist strategy in a lot of our daily lives that we don't necessarily associate with woke. Like Marxists really wanted to push to make art to be less recognizable as art. They wanted to make it look like paintings just had paint thrown at a canvas. They wanted sculpture to just look like these just these images that really didn't make any visual sense. And so when we look at modern art, we don't think of that as woke, and we certainly don't think of it as Marxist. And yet, in the early 60s and 50s, when the Marxists were really pushing to say, look, we can really dishearten these democracies, we can really dishearten these free societies if we make their art just look like nothing, just look like garbage. And then at the same time, you have the modernist movement where it really looks like, paint's just being thrown at a canvas. It's, it kind of disturbs you. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so much. And then seeing our forefathers or our founding fathers of our country as being whatever they had to say was just old and no longer relevant in modern day. You hear that out of the mouths of Marxists back in the day, and then you hear that out of the mouths of woke educators now. And it's like, there's so many parallels that after a while, you can't say this is coincidence. One had to draw from the other. So.
And thus we come to a dystopian world where Winston finds himself fighting against or being trapped against, I'm not even sure which way you want to say it,
Right.
critical feather theory. Um, I've often said, and I think that more than anything, what people need to understand is history is just what it is. There's some really good parts, but there's some really, really ugly parts of history. And all we can do with history is tell it. And to quote Gouda, we either learn the lessons of history or we're destined to repeat them. And so, as difficult sometimes as it can be to bring up the icky things in our society as well as any others, we need to address those kind of things and really look at them. And I love the way you've done it because you've added in a sense of humor so that it's not just some kind of textbook, but it's really just a fun way of looking at it and making go, I wonder.
Yeah, I wanted to make it accessible because I'd done a lot of research, but all of the things written about this subject were all very serious papers written by academics that did not like woke's influence over academia and scholarship, and but there were things no one would read, and I mean, who would actually read the cover to cover of the Communist Manifesto? So I'm thinking no one's going to actually read this stuff. So I have to write it in a way that just makes it more accessible. And I think humor makes it more accessible. And also, the fact that it's a graphic novel, a lot of silly pictures and a lot of funny images can just kind of, get people to really understand, because this is not a battle for the intellectuals or for the educators. This is a battle for everyone. Everyone should know what the stakes are, and everyone should know what's going on with this, because it is very important. There's nothing more important than you or I will do than educate our children. And there's nothing that a society will do that's more important than educate their next generation. And so I don't see this as some obscure intellectual battle between two groups of stuffed shirts arguing over coffee. I think that this is a battle that every parent, everyone who's sent a kid to school, everyone who's paid a college tuition, everyone deserves to weigh in on this battle.
Oh, I agree completely. I mean, I encourage youths, young adults probably would be a better word, when they're in college to debate things, to listen to. And I guess that would be my takeaway from the book too is, just listen to other people's arguments. Don't let everybody else's opinions become yours, but rather, engage in debate and understand why you believe what you believe rather than just well, that's the way everybody else does it kind of a thing. I love your approach to it. So, what's one takeaway that people, other than the fact that they need to get the book, that people could get out of critical feather theory?
Well, I guess the takeaway is when I started feeling that there was something wrong with my children's education, I tried to fight it by myself. I went to the school and confronted a teacher, and she simply said, "Oh, you're right. That won't happen again." And then she continued to do what she was doing before. So I just to say to parents, the big takeaway is, number one, don't fight this on your own. There's so many parents' rights organizations already out there that can help you. There's such strength in numbers. We really shouldn't get angry. We should get organized. And that's really the only way to fight this, is to be part of a movement. Fighting it on your own, I tried and failed. So the only way is to get organized. But the other thing is, don't lose heart. We are going to win this, and because you can feel the tide turning, and it's not just conservative parents; it's conservative, liberal, moderate parents. I mean, it doesn't seem to matter what their party affiliation is or what their ideology is. The parents are coming together and are pushing back on this madness. So take heart. You're not the only one that's felt this way. You're not the only one that suspects there's something wrong with your kid's education. But there is something we can all do about it, and the tide is turning in the right direction.
I love it. Well, you can get Critical Feather Theory today for free on Amazon. I put the link, it's also in the description in case you missed it up there. It's also down in the comments now. Jared, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the show today.
Thank you, Steve.